here. And anybody, I'm just double checking. Oh, Ron, if you want to say hi, now that you're off, your camera's on.
Oh, yeah, hi. Sorry, I was sneaking in my breakfast. That's why my camera was off. So I'm pretty sure nobody wanted to see me eat. But I see lots of familiar faces. I, too, am Better Homes and Gardens. It's interesting. We could have had it here. With so many of us, we could have done one remote. No, this is, guys, let me tell you something. I've seen this presentation many times. Many times. And the reason that I'm here again is because you can't see it enough. So this isn't a one and done. This is a be back polish. That's my words of wisdom for the day.
And most of you probably know, but Ron is also a coach extraordinaire with our company. We are always very, very grateful to have him. He's been with us almost two years, right?
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so, and I see Robin, perfect timing, put on your camera, and Shannon is saving her voice today. Shannon Smith is here. She's with our team. I will let you guys know who she is. She ran what used to be the top inside sales department in Canada. So that means people who focus being on the phone and booking appointments all day long for realtors from specific teams. And since then, we coached into creation what now is the largest inside sales department in Canada, who does about 300 deals per year from inside sales just from their team. So these are real heavy hitters, but the piece that's really important about this is that what Shannon teaches the inside sales teams to do well is exactly what we teach agents to do. Conversion. It's just that inside sales, that's all they do, right? They're not out, with appointments. They're working full-time hours just on conversion. So the systems and processes that we train and teach are always tracked, they're always measured, specifically because we have, huge teams that are data tracking everything they do from the different departments. So, even during COVID, we knew what was working, what wasn't. One of those teams last month, for example, signed 110 buyer agreements just in the month of June. So it's really powerful, the systematic approach we're going to talk about today. So Shannon has a phenomenal amount of experience being both on the phones, but training people to be on them, managing them, and looking at that data. So she is director of coaching and sales with our company, and she also does training with the bigger teams for sales process and things like that. So she might speak, we'll see, but she's using her voice, so we're going to let her save her voice today, which I know what that's like in the coaching and speaking world. Once you start to use your voice, it gets irritated the more you keep trying to talk. And Robin, you popped on video, so I'll let you say hi quickly, and then I'll let Stacey say hi and then move forward. Yours muted. If you click, you got it.
Got it, okay. Yeah, sorry for being a little bit late there. I guess this is my second time around kind of doing this one. I lost you around the end of the last time I did it, and so I'm figuring I'm going to come back and hopefully do it right this time. So.
Yeah. You lost the signal, or you had to jump off last time?
No, I remember, I think you disconnected, and when you came back, I didn't know where to, I didn't have any way to join back.
Yes. Well, my internet went down. Yes.
Okay. Well, it's no problem. I'm just glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. We're glad you're here too. And I've upgraded my internet since, just for the record, so everyone knows we should be good to go. And this Stacy with the little one here is our director of operations. So if you have any questions or logistics, Stacy is always who helps us out and plans all of the Zooms, and she's got her little one with her at home. Hi, Stacy.
Hello.
Hi. Less red cheeks today. Looking better.
Yes. Not. We're teething, but we're doing better today. So we'll be here.
Okay, we'll be here. Yeah, we know we'll go off the you too. So I'm going to start. Thanks, Stacey. I'm going to open up our slideshow because we have a lot that we're going to accomplish today. So again, I want to give a little bit of a sense of. There we go. A little bit of a sense of what we're focusing on today. So you were sent a little bit of the phone side of what we use, by the way, and it's not just phone, it's also in email, obviously, but that's a whole other full day, again, workshop that we run usually once a year. We were going to potentially run it again in this summer, but at this point, it's we're going to see, because scheduling, and there's a lot going on even with events and projects on our side. So we're going to be focusing the majority of our time today on the buyer consultation, on the mentality to have success with the buyer consultation. And this is really important because I know teams who actually do this where they just give you the PowerPoint and they say, okay, memorize it and you're good to go. But the problem is that when we just give the script without giving a mentality, we don't really have the perspective of the people who get the top results with that system. And that's a problem because a PowerPoint presentation can be interpreted, hundreds, maybe millions of different ways. And the value is in the mentality of the agent to understand how to use the presentation. So we'll start our day talking about that mentality, how we want to position ourselves, where we want to come from by way of perspective. Is it more sales? Is it more consulting? We'll definitely talk about that. We are going to take set breaks today because I know it's important. You guys can plan your time and everyone wants to be able to stretch their legs a little bit and things like that. So right at 10 a.m. we'll take a 10-minute break. 11 a.m. we'll take a 10-minute break. We will break for lunch between 12 and 12:45 Eastern Standard Time. So I apologize. Everyone else is adjusting a little bit. 2 o'clock we'll take a break. 3 o'clock we'll take a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll see how we do. Usually we try and end by 4:30, but if you have more questions or we haven't covered everything, then we would go right until 5. But we try to have a buffer there for you guys. It is a long, full day for sure. If there are any questions, which I'm hoping there'll be lots of them, please feel free. I'm opening the chat even now, so I have it here. But I'll have the chat open as we go. So definitely put the question in chat. I will stop periodically and just ask for questions, and that's when you can unmute because it's better just to hear each other and actually discuss it. But if you have quick little questions or you don't want to forget, as we go, just definitely throw it in chat, and I'll make sure when we stop for questions that I will cover all the questions that you have, or let me know where to find those resources. So what mountains do we need to climb today? So I've already asked all of you for input on that, and it sounds like the mountains we need to climb are that we need a process. We want to be a little bit more organized. We want to be able to be structured so we can expand and do more business. We want to sign more BRAs or buyer representation agreements, and we're going to talk about the mentality of why we sign them. I know some people come to a workshop like this and they're looking for the presentation for many different reasons. Some people use the buyer consultation just specifically to get people on the same page, with their posts or the steps so that they can leave. Some do it because they want a more professional first impression. Some do it because they want to get the buyer representation agreement signed. I would say that really you want it for all of those reasons, not just for one. The agents who sign almost all clients to a buyer agreement typically still use the presentation, whether they need to get the signatures or not, because it creates so much more of a smooth, consistent process, and it allows you to do a much higher volume of business, which is really important. So we are going to solve all of those problems today. In your workbook, you have a commitment. We get what we invest in, right? I think it's important. A lot of learning, even myself over COVID, I was guilty of signing up for a couple of additional workshops that were being offered for free that I wanted to do. And because I didn't invest in a commitment of time or a commitment of money, I didn't really put the focus that I needed to actually prioritize those things. In our world, we know how important that is. When we commit money and we commit time and we commit focus, we end up to get much more out of the experience. It actually gets us to show up and act at a higher level. So today, I have a commitment to ask all of you, and I'm going to have you put it in the chat if you filled this out and signed it. Hopefully you printed out your workbook. If not, you can definitely just put I commit in the chat. So here is what I'm asking you to commit to. Engage in the session for the entire day. Schedule role play and learn time after the session. As Ron mentioned, this is a repeat and strengthen, and every single time that we repeat, we not only strengthen, but we actually reset, because over time, we change our habits, we change our words, and for most people, their performance actually is a little bit down if they're not revisiting, practicing, essentially. So schedule role play and learning time after the session, learn the scripts and presentations provided. You're going to have a chance to create your custom version of the script for the buyer presentation, so you're going to be committing to that. Turn off your cell phone or leave it in your bag or put it upside down, whatever you need to do, so you can be focused throughout the day. Overpower our excuses for not paying full attention. We get what we put our mind into, right? I will show up and play full on, and I will give myself a break and remember that learning takes time. Everybody is new at something or many things at many points in our lives, and we're rarely ever great at something when we're great. So one of the formulas that we work with is effortless success. And some people say nothing is effortless success, but effortless success is a mentality. And it's a combination of not just the systems and the science, but also my mindset, my strengths, my talents, my personality, the gifts that you guys bring to your clients and the people you work with. So it's a combination of the art, which is the essence of us, our personal development, our mindset, the science, which is the system, the process, the trackable, data-driven side of our business, which some people don't focus on a lot, but I would say all the heavy hitters focus on quite a bit. And Kaizen, which is the principle of just getting a little bit better every single day. So instead of, if you've been on our masterminds, you might have heard me talk about this. We have this idea in North America of like innovation, right? And I'm going to make these big plays, or I'm going to do these, huge jumps in my business. But the problem at times with innovation is that we can wipe out what we have and try to create these huge new, dynamic projects or businesses. But often if we jump so quickly, we end up just coming back down to the ground. Whereas Kaizen is saying, I'm going to work with what I have to continually make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. So I'm going to get to the same heights as the person who jumped, but I'm going to do it by actually creating a foundation, a staircase, by building underneath myself as I go. So it's the principle of small daily improvements. And for us, that's the recipe for effortless success. Because if I'm doing all of those things, what else can I do? There's no need to worry or struggle if I'm modeling excellence and I'm getting a little bit better every day. And my mentality is, abundance and positive, and that's a pretty great recipe for effortless success. This is an ultimate opportunity for most people who get access to this. When you see the big, heavy-hitting teams that do a lot of onboarding, the biggest ones that have scaled the fastest in Canada, they use these systems to train their agents up front before they give them lead opportunities. So you're getting the overview of the exact same system as those big, massive producing teams who are doing 300, 500, some of them 1,000 deals or more per year. So they're extremely powerful, and they will work just as well for you and for individual agents and clients. It's just those teams invested in years to master those systems so that they can also create the same level of success in their agent. So, and on that note, I'm going to look on chat and just see, because if you are, our first step is to commit to that, because if you can't commit to all of that, you're not going to get what you want out of the day. So I'm just letting everybody have a chance. Bill. About 4 of 18. I'm watching. Robin, are you committing to that? You want to put I commit in chat? And Raj, got Diana, Asia, thank you, Princess. All right, thank you. I'm gonna let Stacy have a quick peek and just see if we're okay there. If you have any concerns in what I wrote or a reason not to commit to it, just put that in chat too. We'll circle back after on that side of it. Okay. All right, so must-haves for online buyer consult. We've added a little bit of this around COVID. In the past, I didn't talk about this as much, but I want to share something. We talked about this at our coaches meeting yesterday, and I think it's important. Recommend take time to share all your views as well, and that is And that is some of the data that's coming in. So we made changes around COVID to go to these more remote processes and systems. But what we've actually found is something really interesting, that the teams that were really strong on the conversion systems, the communication systems, they were and are, I want to say the present tense because it is, they were throughout COVID and are booking more buyer consultations remotely than they did with the same number of phone calls or the same number of contacts before COVID. So they're actually finding that there's greater ease and people are more willing to book to use for an online appointment. This is really important. The second piece, though, that we know is that your no-show rate is a little bit higher for an online Zoom or Google, whatever platform you're using, based consultation. And I want to tell you this because often, even for the in-person appointments, agents get really dissuaded when they get no-shows or last-minute cancellations. And this is why, we always say there's a cost of doing business. And I always put it this way. If you could book 10 buyer consultations and 7 of them are going to show up, and of those, let's say 5 of them, let's just be really conservative, 5 of them are going to sign a buyer agreement to work with you. Are you willing to do that? Most agents will say, yes, I'm willing to do that. Like those numbers aren't, that bad. We had how many hours if it was at the office, maybe an hour max per appointment was at their house, a little bit longer to drive there. But essentially, we're looking at 10 hours to have 7 of which filled with face-to-face potential clients, 5 of which filled with people who are going to sign and choose to work with us, which even at most conservative numbers, you should have 2 to 3 deals coming from that. That's a pretty good investment of time. But how it feels when it's a Saturday and it's sunny outside, let's say before COVID, and you had a shower, put on your business clothes, gone into the office, and somebody didn't show up, and that's where he's like, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm not doing these buyer consultations, this doesn't work, forget it. And sure enough, they might give it one more shot, and it's the next day on a Sunday, and this thing happens. Now, maybe their scripting wasn't strong enough, maybe they didn't make any reminder calls, they didn't have any reciprocity, some of the things that we talked with you about today. There's so many things that they could have been doing to impact more people no-showing, but all we see and all we know how that feels, right? Like I know those days where it's like I wanted to do something with my kids, and I tried to very rarely have a day where I just had one appointment. I would always chunk my time. So if I was working on a Saturday, it would be like all Saturday morning, and I'd chunk all my time and all my appointments. So I would never really have that feeling. But the odd time, I was like, okay, I came in and they didn't come back, and it doesn't feel great, but that's why I always tracked my business, because I knew it didn't bug me very much if up to 30% of people no-showed in a certain month, because most months it wouldn't be that high. But if it happened certain months, I was okay with that, because for me, 70% was still coming in, and I personally was signing 98% over like 3 years. I signed 98% of everyone in front of me. So really, because I knew my numbers, I didn't complain about it. I'm bringing this up because when we book the online consultations, we are seeing a little bit higher of an overall no-show rate. So that's something to expect, but we're not driving to the office, or we're already at we have other appointments, we're logging onto an online platform. It's a little bit quicker for us. So there is that. But overall, because we're booking more appointments, or the teams that are really strong in the process and tracking, they're booking a higher volume of appointments. They have a little bit higher of a no-show rate, but overall, they're still signing more contracts and doing it in far less time. So some of them are not rushing at all to go back to face-to-face consultations for this reason, because they're actually seeing better results overall by leaving our online platform. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind. Sorry, my cat's doing something weird and it's loud. I don't know if you guys can hear. So we want to get through, we want to have the Zoom consultation, but how do we get buyers to actually meet us on Zoom? How do we provide value? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. If you need more help with that, you're going to notice I give you resources today, because I don't want you to leave going, I have this presentation, but nobody's showing up for it. I don't know how to invite people to show up for it. Again, we have a full online coaching series called Elite Business Builder, and we do one-on-one coaching. So if you need help, we have lots of options that we can help you to get a bit stronger with getting people to meet you at the appointment, and it's just practice. But you'll notice I reference extra resources when you need them. So we're going to start off the day at the most important place. Where are we at and what is our role? Because if we don't start with this, and I've been talking a lot about this throughout COVID, because if we don't start with this, we're going to have incredible difficulty maximizing the power of the buyer consult. So the client's role is to express, and I usually it doesn't show that right. The client's role is to express a potential need or want to buy or sell. Okay, and I'm saying potential because they may just be thinking about buying or selling. It may be 18 months, 2 years down the road. They may not even be considering you. And that's totally okay. What we want to do is put ourselves mentally in a positioning where we say everything that happens within our business is because we set our business up that way. Yes, so there will be some people who will not follow our lead, who will not want to work with us, who will not, sign a BRA with us, and that's totally okay. Those are the people who are the percentages who are going to work with us, right? But our role is to have massive clarity. So where is the client at? What are the steps in the process? And how can I be really strong at offering a high level of value now in the client's mindset? So you're going to hear me talk a lot today that as humans, we were not born thinking, communicate in a way of what's in it for other people. And this is where most of our communication goes sideways really fast, because we need to be able, at the drop of a dime, to be able to consider where that potential buyer or seller is at, what's important to them, and offer something that's valuable to them just to move one step at a time in the process. So our goal is to show people how easily, less hassle, less stress, less overall concern, and sometimes less money overall, less frustration. It is to move forward with us one step at a time in the process. That's our only goal. And I'm gonna show how this works throughout today. So if you're saying, yeah, but we want them to get an offer, if we help nurture people one step at a time in the process, we will be able to have far more clients. We'll be able to have literally double, triple, quadruple the volume of potential clients, follow-ups, leads, things like that. It will allow you to have so much more abundance in your business because you're going to know how to bank and nurture business for the future, which is one of the biggest downfalls for most agents. So this is really, really vital that we can do this. If we can nurture clients always one step at a time, the deals will naturally come. So instead of looking at it like people buy, this perfect house, this perfect product, we're going to look at it that people buy or sellers are ready when they're confident. So our job as agents is actually to ensure that we do everything we can to make sure they're ready, they're confident, they're realistic, which we're going to talk about more today. And then naturally, the house sale or the buy will happen, right? If we have open clients who are willing to follow a lead, then typically we have more influence to help people, whether it's a seller who's being a little bit stubborn about price, maybe not wrong in this market, they don't need to be, but in other markets they certainly could be. So everything else we want to look at as a complete waste of time. And I mean that literally. So if we have a call from somebody who's saying, oh, I'm thinking about, buying a house on like Scugog, and, I'm wondering which ones are the prime areas for waterfront and which areas have more weeds. I really want to make sure, I've heard that can be shallow. I want to make sure my kids can swim. If that is a new person calling us focusing on giving any of that information other than some really basic is actually going to be a waste of time. So this can sound kind of harsh, but I'm going to explain it as we go, because the key here is that person actually needs overall information. They're calling maybe about what house, potentially. Or they're calling because they saw, you connected with the listing for a couple of houses in that area. But overall, 99% of people who call or email or text about a certain house or even a couple of houses will not buy that house. It's a very small percentage of people. If you have a larger percentage of people purchasing the houses that they call on in your personal business, that might be because you are doing less overall, less overall market. There's two things. You could be doing a smaller marketing, that's the word I'm looking for. So less different styles of marketing to attract clients, because certain styles of lead generation and marketing are going to attract people earlier in the process or later in the process. So one thing. The second reason that could be happening is because you may be using language that is only appealing to buy now, sell now people. And you might hear that and say, but that's a good thing, right? Like a lot of old school like coaching and training, that's what they wanted to do. It's like cut everything else out. You just want to buy now, sell now people. Very few businesses can sustain themselves with just the buy now and sell now people, but yet we're using language that completely dissuades or pushes everybody else away. That's a problem, and we're wasting a lot of follow-up. So we're actually pushing people away who might be considering buying or selling in a couple of months or up to 6 months. And being able to nurture those people is really important for business. The other thing to keep in mind, if you are in the GTA, which a lot of you are, we still are North America's largest real estate board. We have more competition for sales than any other real estate board or area in all of the US. Even more than all of North America, even more than Manhattan. Right? They have more money, but they don't have as much competition for agents to sales. So this is really important. If we're using really aggressive just buy now, sell now language, the idea that you're going to get enough opportunities or enough supply to even hit your goals is slim to none. It's just too competitive in that area. How agents are getting ahead of that is they're nurturing relationships much more earlier in the process before they even talk to that agent who's going to use the buy now, sell now mentality and language with them. So we're going to talk about that a lot, because today what we're working on is going to help you be one of those agents who are actually talking to people so much earlier in the process who can secure a relationship. So literally, it's just like, what is the word? It's the crumbs, right? Left at the end with the buy now, sell now people, because most everybody else is already going to have engaged in some type of online marketing or technology. And they're already going to be connected with an agent in that way. Our industry has changed drastically in how business comes to us. Can you guys hear the background? I have new headphones, so I just don't know how sensitive it is. Could you hear the fire trucks? Ron, just shake your head yes or no. You can? Okay, I'm just curious, because I'll pause if I need to, but if I don't, I'll just go on. All right. So, again, if we don't know these steps, then essentially we can't lead anybody, because it's the blind leading the blind, right? If I don't know the steps in my process, or as me, I like to hike, if I'm going to take that group and I don't know our path, or I don't know where to detour, why am I the Sherpa? Why am I the guide? I don't even know where we're going. So I'm just going to look at them. Hey, where do you guys want to go? Or hey, what do you think? Which is fine sometimes, depending the hike you're doing, but I'm sure if you actually want to go up, oh my gosh. For example, like Kilimanjaro, you can't hike it without having a guide for that reason, right? You want to know somebody who knows where they're going. So the key here is that we want to have these steps ahead so we can give clients options when needed, but we're not deviating from the process, because it's actually what's going to get you the deals at the end of the day. It also allows us to be really objective, even if clients are overwhelmed or feeling emotional in the process, or sometimes people are buying or selling for reasons that are really difficult for them, right? So we want to be able to navigate in a really objective way. And you'll notice I do a lot of references to the professional side of it. Like, again, think of a great lawyer, right? If anybody's been through any legal experiences, if you think of a great lawyer, it's not that they're not compassionate. It's not that they don't have empathy. They do. They have empathy. But they're using that connection with their clients to try to have a very logical way to protect them and guide them through something that's very difficult. So as agents, if we want to have that same professional kind of stature, that same professional standing with our clients, we want to make sure that we can be strategic and navigate a process even when clients are going through hard things. Instead of just going, oh, they're upset, you know what, I'm just going to let them call me. It's like, hey, what's most important to you? Here's some options. What's better for you? Here's some options to move forward. Here's some options not to. Our goal is to give options so people can decide, are they going to move forward or not? And some people won't, and that's totally fine. And they'll go on hold in your process. Benefits of internalizing the sales process, which is, we're going to look at the steps in a second. It's the whole way from lead generation all the way up to past clients. You can always identify where you're at in the process and know exactly what to do next with your client. You can be proactive in leading your clients to the next step if you know ahead of time what the next step is, and you can reap the rewards of a proven system over and above anyone who doesn't have one. That last one's the kicker. I always say, I love the human will. I love the human spirit. Yeah, I live to help people empower their will and their spirit. Even when they are maxed up to their full tilt, you can have somebody who started to put systems in place a couple of years ago, and they're just kind of trugging along, right? They're not putting their full willpower into it. They'll power out. We all know this, right? And if you don't, you definitely look into. There's some amazing research about how willpower works. Power of Habit is a great book, but it has an end. And if we have a system-based business, we're solving problems in advance. And somebody who doesn't have a system is constantly putting out fires. Even when you have a system, you're going to put out fires, but they're new fires. They're not the basic stuff. So your business is still expanding. So really key, you can have a subpar agent, like an average agent who takes the time to make their business systematic, and they'll be able to outperform a very talented agent without systems or support. Hands down, within usually a year, maybe 18 months. Okay? Really important. All top performers have a science and an art in any industry that allows them to outperform. It's not just, hey, I'm going to show up and give it my all every single day. That's just not the reality of the times we live in. It's a little more complex than that. So these steps allow us to have chain of commitment. And chain of commitment is simply like the chain link fence or the chain link rope, not a rope, chain. Didn't I get stuck on the same language last time? I'm having a deja vu. The chain links, which create. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's like a rope, but it's chain links. So when you're at that step with a client, for example, I'm on the phone. What I want to do on the phone is give enough value that person either wants to talk to me in the future because they're too early on in the process, or they would like to meet me on Zoom or distance for some of you for a buyer consultation. Using the step I'm at now to give enough value to secure the next chain link is exactly what the chain of commitment is. Often as agents, we're focusing so much on the people who are booking, the people who are moving forward, which is great. But if you have a process, you're not worried about the people who have already pre-booked. You're worried about the people who get dropped through the cracks because they're the ones who are going to take so much more of our energy. So if you talk to somebody today and you don't book a follow-up or you don't book the next appointment, that next chain link is not in place. You're going to spend 10 times the time, the energy, the frustration, trying to call those people to get them back on track. So an example, let's say you're using our buyer consultation and you don't book market education, okay? So the client leaves the appointment. One of the most important things we do is chain of commitment. So they'll come to Zoom, they've done your buyer consultation, and we want to book an appointment, which we'll talk about today, to go out on Zoom or in person, but more likely on Zoom right now, to see 4 or 5 houses or look them over together to get a sense of their wants and needs. If that client leaves and we have not pre-booked market education, or I have not connected them with a mortgage broker, the likelihood is I'm going to try to call that client a couple times. Would we agree? I'm going to call them maybe in a couple of days, realizing I haven't heard back from them, and the mortgage broker just texted me she couldn't get a hold of them. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to get their voicemail. 99%, I'm going to bet you're going to get their voicemail. So you're going to leave a voicemail. You're probably going to now send an email. A couple of days later, hopefully you put a follow-up in your system. If you're not using CRM, this person might already be gone, just lost in translation, right, in your business. We've got busy, but hopefully you set a follow-up. You're going to try them again. Next thing you know, you could be a week and a half out, and between texts and emails and calls, you try to get hold of this person 10 times just to secure that next step. All of that time could have been prevented, being spent, just by giving enough value to get the commitment at the buyer consultation, to talk to the mortgage broker, and to pre-book the appointment for market education. Chain of commitment is like training our brains to always say, I'm never leaving them standing at now without securing the next step unless the client needs to go on hold. It's not good for them to go to the next step. And absolutely, that's different. they would go on hold. But my job is to show value and create confidence in moving that one step forward. And the more you do it, it'll become like intuitive, instinctive for you. You'll just naturally always be planting seeds all the time to ensure comfort and understanding for the next step, because it'll make it so smooth for you to work with a higher volume of clients. So that is chain of commitment. It's actually not the people who are pre-booked who we need to focus on, because they're automated in our brains now. It's all the people who drop that link that we're going to spend all this extra time and energy that legitimately we don't need to spend. So if time's super important to you, this is one of the ways that I was able to do the business I did with the time constraints I did. So when people would say, like, how are you spending half the time literally in the business as the other people on the same team? But at the time, some of them ended up to sell more in the years after. But at the time, we were very close. Like, we were all within 10 deals of each other for the entire year. This was how I did it, because I knew I had to pre-book in my schedule and I had to be very restrictive. So just to give an example, I have 2 kids under the age of 5, and I was able to work one day on the weekend and 2 evenings, and then when they were in school or childcare, so like Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of thing. More like I was usually at the office by 8:30, 8:45 in the morning, almost always, and then probably there until let's say 4:30, and then 2 evenings and 1 day on the weekend. I was able to do that, and in my first year in real estate, I sold 47 homes. There's no way ever that I could have done that if I was not using principles like this. I was literally looking at every single way I could cut off minutes and seconds and hours off of my day to be more efficient. And the great thing was that my clients got to pay with me just as much. Okay, let's pre-book that. You know what? Let's get out on showings if they were active. It made doing much more business so much easier. The last year that I was selling real estate actively and running my prior coaching company, I had 25 to 30 coaching clients a week, and I had 86 active buyer consultation. I was active buyer units at that point when I stopped. So that was over 12 months, because I signed in for 12 months. But the key here that you guys know, not all 86 of those people were out actively on showings. Not all of them were pre-approved right now. Some of them were going to buy in 6 months' time. Some of them wouldn't end up to buy for 18 months later. I've had people sign a BRA and buy with me 2.5 years later, just because life happened. So the key is, it's not how much business you have, it's how your brain's organizing that business, and when you know you can drop the ball, like in the CRM, and not worry about it, versus when you're literally dropping the ball and you're going to create a lot more time and energy for yourself. So that's what today's all about. Allowing you guys to have so many more people come in the funnel. Because most agents, when you get overwhelmed, you go, okay, yeah, I'm full, right? Like, I'm full. For me in my business, there's no way I would have ever talked to somebody and been like, I'm full. I would have put a follow-up, I would have looked an appointment. If I needed to get help, fine, but I always knew what to do with them. So there was nothing in my brain that's like, you need to not help these people. There was never that feeling, because I knew they might buy in a week, they might not. Even people who say they're going to buy now, sometimes buy 6 months later. My job is to put them through the process and let whatever happens, right? Just double check in case any questions. Okay, any suggestions for a good CRM? Email the software, text the software. Okay, we will talk about that in a minute. I'm going to get us up to another slide, and then I will answer that question. That's a great question. How can we frame every interaction for success? So this is key, and if you've heard me on some other presentations, you're a webinar with me with this, you want to hear this a bunch of times. It's really valuable to keep going back over this, because again, 90 to 95% of our time is not spent just selling houses. It's not just spent on offers or amendments or waivers or notices of completion. 90 to 95% of our time is spent, for most agents on marketing and admin and hoping to talk to face-to-face clients more and more. For agents on a team, which some of the people we service are on a team, even for the agents who are most leveraged, right? Like team leaders who have their personal licensed assistants, or agents who have shared licensed assistants, they have all sorts of help. Even for those people, they don't even come close to having 90 to 95% of the time on offers. Agents who sell 100 deals or more themselves on teams or off teams do not spend 90 to 95% of the time just on offers. But we go to so much training in real estate where it's like, we have to get the deal, we have to on paper, all this stuff. pushing people to get to that final step can really backfire. But if we nurture all those steps, which is where 90 to 95% of our time is, then those deals naturally happen. If we focus on what we can't control, we get overwhelmed. We get stressed. If I focus on all the little steps I can control and I do them magnificently well, I'm going to have phenomenally more business. It's just a difference in focus and mentality. So again, when we tend to focus this way, the deals fall out on the other side. We want to get strong at that chain of commitment to have a continuous flow of momentum. So focusing on the deals with when we have not put the effort and care into prepping clients, moving them through that car to drive without gas, right? Which is not a realistic mentality. Chain of commitment is defined as a date, a time, a place. A date, a time, a place. Even for showings, it might be, hey, we have a date, we have a time, I'll let you know the first house we're going to meet at, or hey, if you still bring, right now you're probably not bringing clients in your car. Definitely there's not, if you're having mass, it is what it is, but probably I would recommend, at this point, you're probably not taking clients in your car, they're probably in their own car, so you'll have a date, a time, and, a first house that you're going to meet in front of, or even the office. But everything else with chain of commitment is very important you have this. Why am I bringing this up? Because again, it's all about laser focus. So if I'm leaving that buyer consultation and saying we're going to do market education, sometime next week, or I'm talking to the person who called on realtor.ca or emailed me on realtor.ca, and I called them back and we're talking about a showing saying, yeah, great, we'll probably go sometime, tomorrow or the next day. That is not a link in your chain. That's a break in the chain. Because you're going to have to call that person back, and now you don't have a place to work from. So if I booked a appointment for showings next Thursday, let's just say, and let's say it's market education, so it's not like showings, it's just to go out and kind of get a sense in market, or we're going to do it on Zoom. And I booked it next Thursday at 7 p.m. and we've agreed that I'm going to send a link in advance, and I picked 5 to 7 homes that we're going to look at together. If you have any you want to look at my eyes, because my eyes are what you're investing in right now. It's my experience, my perspective you're investing in. Send those over, we'll add those in as well. If I have that date, that time, that location, and somebody calls to cancel or to rebook, it's so much easier for me to either maintain that appointment or to move it by an hour or two or move it by a day. If you don't have the date, the time, the location, you're more likely that you're calling them just to try to secure the original idea that you thought you had an appointment with those people in the first place. Then you're calling and it ends up the week after, and eventually you're just following up, and usually nothing comes of it. So we want to have the date, time, and location so I can say, great, you know what, I've already secured that time and booked it in my schedule exclusively for you. If you're seeing homes, I did book those showings, sellers have confirmed that, so they're prepared to be out of the house and things like that. It's possible that we could still go Thursday at 7 p.m. What if we went out to see 4 or 5 homes instead of the 6 or 7? So we carved it down to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours max. Is that something that is still possible? So I can try to hold it if I have a date, time, and location, instead of, imagine if you had 86 active buyer contracts and everybody was all like wishy-washy when it came to time and location, and you had people rebooking and canceling. How much business could you possibly do? You'd probably never even be able to get up to have that level of clientele. So securing your time and respecting is a big part of having a client process, and we're teaching clients how to treat us and vice versa, right? So date, time, location is necessary to actually have the next link in the chain. It's vital. Essentially, it doesn't count without it, which I know is hard, but it's like drawing a line in the sand. Okay, so we're at our sales. We are at our sales process. Today, again, we are focusing more on the meeting, the sign up, and market education. The lead creation and marketing, obviously, all the people in real estate have really strong connections, strong sense of that. But if you're really strong at a client process, where do you think your focus needs to be? Just throw it in chat. If you're really strong at a client process, where are the most important places for your mental focus to be? Because I can't focus all this all the time, right? I've met with clients, I've active people, I'm buying a pink and buying something like that. Let's just say, where do I need my mental focus to be? I'm just watching the chat, so you can unmute yourself if you prefer to say. Is anybody having an issue with the audio, my audio? Can everyone hear me clearly? Some people are having a bit of a break. Okay. Is it still breaking up? It's better? Okay, let me know, because if I need to, I will take off the video, but it does look like it had some type of new signal I've never seen over my mute button, so I don't know what's happening. So sorry, please let me know right away if there's any problems with audio, because I should be crystal clear for you guys, so if not, please throw it in the chat. So, this is the client process. Where do you think we mentally need to have the most awareness and focus? Where should our brains, if we're really getting strong at this, where should our most energy and focus be in this process as agents? Where's the most important spots to be hyper connected with if we're using a chain of commitment? You listen to me. Bill says booking.
All links are important.
Pardon? Okay, one more time.
I said all the links are important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All the leads, yeah, for sure. All leads are important. And Elizabeth says market education in order to show value. Yeah. So essentially, the stronger you get with this process, the two key areas that you're going to be hyper-focused on are the beginning and the end. So you want to think of it like this, like a great transaction coordinator, for example, in a team, or a lead nurturer, lead coordinator. We kind of talk about that with the metaphor of air traffic controllers. So each of us in our business are air traffic controllers. It's our job to know how many planes are up in the sky. It's our job to know who's having smooth sailing at the right cruising altitude and who needs to land next. And land means go to a accepted and a firm offer, right? That's our job. So if you're using a chain of commitment, your most important places are actually going to be right at the beginning and at the end. Why? Because if you're putting enough planes onto the runway and getting enough of them into the air, the goal is that you're using the chain of commitment to pre-book all the other steps. As long as you pre-book the other steps, the plane's still in the air. If the client goes on hold, they're legitimately on hold, then hey, they're going to land, but they're just hanging out there like they're not meant to go forward. That's different. If you don't book next steps with the client, then you're going to have all these planes landing that you need to get back on the air. That's going to make your focus. It's going to distract you. It's going to take you out of the game. The whole point is to say, I have enough people coming into the process that I can quickly and easily know who should I be trying to meet with, who should be going on follow-up, and who do I need to say goodbye to. And once I have the planes in the air, which is the meet and the sign up, so you guys are actually right, my job is to keep having them pre-booked so I maintain energy, right? Because when people get dissuaded because they're losing out on multiple offers, or there's a hiccup with financing, or they were affected potentially by some of the financing changes, they can't afford as much. There's so many things that can happen for buyers. Their energy can go down. Our job is to get people on track and agree with the process, but then manage their energy so that they stay confident and comfortable all the way throughout the process, right? So we want to avoid planes landing, and they land only if they're not pre-booked to their next step in the process. Their market education, or their showings, or having a turnaround meeting if they're going on lots of showings, but they're not, deciding to move forward with anything. we want to make sure that our job is to have a hyper focus on, do I have enough people or planes coming into my business? And once I do that, if I'm really good at my process, those middle steps are very much automated for me. I'm using the CRM, I'm pre-booking my clients. It's only if I'm dropping the ball and people are landing, I've got to take all this time, get them back on track, which means I didn't do my job the right step, that I'm going to get really distracted. The second area of focus is always at the end, because people don't just randomly buy or sell. I mean, in the wrong seller's market, obviously, like we're there's much more urgency with timing. But people do it when they are ready. So if you have a high volume of clients you're working with, we want to have enough intuition or experiential intuition to know, hey, if I spend a bit more time with those buyers, they're ready to go. If they're going to buy now, and I have a group of people behind them who I'm warming up, who are going to take their place. So I always need to have this hyper focus on who's ready to go now. Those people get the most of my time, my energy, and my attention. And then who's going to replace them? So what how many planes are going up in the sky? How well am I holding them there? And my hyper focus is on which ones are ready to land. Because I can't try to get everyone into a firm offer or be trying to focus on every seller all of the time. I need to focus on the ones who, if they have my time, energy, and attention, they move to a firm transaction. Okay, that's really important. We need to hyper prioritize our resources as agents and realize that if I'm talking to somebody about meeting them, there's no reason to put pressure about, well, if you see this house, are you going to put an offer in on it? You're going to lose a lot of the people who, if you nurture them through a process, will buy a house with you. But if we get too aggressive at the start of the process and they're mentally 6 months out, those people will not want to meet with you. They're not going to want to work with you. And the reality is, taking them through these steps, half the people are going to buy in half the time of market education, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Half the people will buy in half the time. So why do I want to create stress and pressure on the phone with somebody who's calling me about seeing a property or questions about a property when I know A, 99% chance they're never going to buy that property. It's not the right property for themselves and their family. B, these people could be 6 months out, 4 months out in the process. If I try to push them or talk to them about offers, they are going to naturally move away from it. I'm going to lose that business. And C, if I put them through the process, it's going to prepare them anyway. If they're going to buy, they might be that half of people who buy in half the time. Why not just let the process get them comfortable and confident, and then they'll decide what's best for them? It's so much smoother, more effortless of a way to deal with a much higher volume of clients. Chris, and I'm going to forget his last name, I'll look it up after, but I did a session with Rob Balky for his masterminds, talking about client process. So I coached with Rob for years. There was an agent who's top 5. He's one of the top listing agents on Rob Balky's team. And he came onto the mastermind and said the reason he did the volume of business that he did is because he understood client process. He's like, when everyone else is like, how are you possibly talking to this many people but still doing this much business? He's like, because mentally I know how to organize business, so I never feel overwhelmed. Right? And that's because he's mentally worked hard to take this process in. It's allowed him to expand quite a bit. Okay, any questions about this? Is initial, but any other questions other than the CRM right now? Because I'll just not break, but pause. Actually, I'm supposed to be giving you guys a break. Yes, momentarily I am. So this is a good time for questions. So CRM, if you are a team, there's an obvious front runner. We're not official affiliates with them. We do work with them, but we have no kickbacks or anything like that. But Follow Up Boss is definitely like way ahead for the front runner for CRM for teams. Some of the teams are still working with, for example, Top Producer, because there is some truth and there is also some non-truth to the statement that the best CRM is the one you use. If you're on Top Producer as a team and you're fully using it, like all of its functionality, you're using more than what most people use of Follow Up Boss, right? But if you're actually an organized team and you're structured, you have systems and processes, then yes, you want to move to Follow Up Boss because it has the API, so you can custom feed leads in from different platforms and different sources. You can customize aspects of it much more so. top producer is a little bit older technology, and as of now, they haven't shown that they're going to be updating that. So I don't really recommend any teams as they're going to go on to top producer. But if they're on it and they're fully using it and it's set up, then usually it's not necessarily worth it for them to switch over at this point. So teams are very different because they have certain needs that most of the CRMs, unfortunately, cannot offer and cannot cater to. So they're a little bit more restricted. When it comes to individual agents, there's so many good ones. As a partner with Kit with David Greenspan. So for individual agents, and if your coaching client is an individual agent, you need to CRM, definitely talk to us because we do partner with them. What I like about their platform is that it also is a hub for your marketing. So you can seamlessly either get, customized like marketing emails from them, but also print, where they'll send it out and they'll customize it based on neighborhood, based on a condo versus house, based on language even. There's so much that they do, and it's all just plug and play, super automated. So we really like that system for individual agents. I'm trying to think. For individual agents, for most people, there's so much you can do. I know some of our clients work with agent locator system, or bulk leads, commissioning, all about the same idea, right? Those are fine for an individual agent. They're even okay for like a small team, but if you want a CRM that can do like your client process and lead conversion and give you plans to call the leads, then you really want to move over to something that's neutral. So it's not that I'm knocking any of the other ones, but most of the big teams have leads coming in from multiple sources. So the idea of being on like one platform that's not comprehensive, or one CRM platform that's only meant for certain needs, it's not comprehensive, it doesn't really work as they continue to grow, okay? So there is that. Depending what CRM you're using, if it's basic emails, like Follow-Up Boss, Top Producer, you can automate emails. Follow-Up Boss, you can automate text. You can even tape your calls, have everything, all your emails, texts, and phone calls, all taped and documented right within the upgraded Follow-Up Boss. That's like one level up. So there's so much you can do there. If you're working with the Kit CRM, it also has the email capability, because I think that was the other part of the question. I'm just going back to double check. Your email blast software. Yeah, text. Again, Follow-Up Boss does all of that. So if you start to add up, adding things on, your Follow-Up Boss is not the cheapest platform, but it is a comprehensive platform. Most agents just took the text message and put a note in their CRM that they texted, just to be honest about it. We work with Infusionsoft as a company. Some teams work with that. I usually don't recommend it for real estate at all. It's called Confusionsoft. It can do absolutely everything, but it's very, very complex. And they have plugins for text and things like that. But honestly, Follow-Up Boss is a pretty good go-to. Okay. Any other questions? Because we are going to take a really quick 10-minute break, and I'm running late on the break time. Nope. All right. It's 10:11. We are going to start again at 10:21. 10-minute break, and we will be back. Okay, so we've been laying the foundation, the sales process, and the goal is to obviously look at the steps we're doing today to frame, we want to frame every interaction to be as strong as we can, because, I've worked with people who are super strong at the buyer consultation, but again, they really struggle with the language, like on the phone, or how to only offer services instead of focusing on the product, which we'll talk about today. So essentially, they have a really hard time getting people into the start of their client process. So once they get them there, almost everybody wants to work with them, but they're losing a lot of people at the beginning. And you usually don't even know that until you start tracking it. And this is why some people really don't like tracking, because they track it and they get frustrated because they're like, oh my gosh, if I'm not getting it anywhere near the baseline, like the minimum of the number of leads to contacts of people to talk to, or number of contacts to appointments or follow-ups, and so they don't like tracking because they don't like seeing it, so they feel like they're not doing well. And most people, as humans, we want to focus on what we are doing well, which makes sense. But as a coach or a trainer or, a team leader or a broker owner or yourself as an agent for your own business, if you're struggling, tracking really allow you to see, like, wait a minute, I'm killing it when people are face to face. Like, they all want to work with me. If I can get better in this one area, I have a massive opportunity. I might not even need more leads. I just need to get stronger when I'm actually talking to those people. That's really valuable information. That's $1 million information for almost every single agent, particularly in any major, like, urban market. It gets multi-million dollar information for teams, multi-million dollar. So it's extremely important that we're framing every interaction for success, because otherwise our weakest link is going to take us out of the game, either in our client process overall or just because our performance, right? So which systems are we looking at? We want to be really good. If you don't like the word script, don't get hung up on it. Scripts it's a way of communicating. It can be a checklist. It can be guiding principles. It can be word for word. I can tell you nobody loves this answer, but the inside sales departments, like the people who book more appointments and create more deals and face-to-face business from online leads or even past client leads, anything like that, they're all working with scripts, because we're taking essentially what is working at the highest level and we're documenting it into a science and then we're teaching it. So it's just like, if you yourself or you have a child learning ballet, right? They're not going to let you usually just go at it. It's not like modern dance when you can just be interpretive and do your own moves and kind of get in the flow and make your own dance. In ballet, you have to learn the core set, poses. You have to do them in a proper way. There's so many techniques. There's a science to how they judge ballet. And oddly enough, there's a science to how the world judges real estate, because when the science is right, you're going to get more results. You're going to have more happy clients. You're going to help more people. Yes, in fact, you will also make more money, because the more people you help, if you have it set up in the right way, you will actually help them buy and sell instead of help them and then they buy and sell with somebody else, right? So really important, if you want the strongest results that we've seen in the industry, it does come from learning the core nuances and words that were created because they're using psychology, they're using personality profiling, they're using learning styles, and these things are really important. Because if I come to the business doing what works for me, it's going to be less than it's going to be less than 2 to 5% of the population for my personality style. That's not going to work. I need to make sure that I'm adjusting using language that is going to be helpful for the majority of the population. Okay, so again, don't get caught up in scripting systems. That's one of the key things, because today we're obviously all here. We're obviously all here around buyer consultation, but again, if you get really great at the buyer consultation and you're not getting enough people to meet you at that meeting, please invest some time, definitely money focused, into getting strong at your scripting or communication system. It will help you do far more with what you're investing in today. Buyer plan is your CRM plan. So here's an extra just tip. If you want our help with that, that's a coaching thing. We don't get into that with a Lean Business Builder. The buyer plan, again, is just modeling success. So it's saying, what do the top agents with buyers, how often do they contact their buyers? Or what are they recommending their buyers do? And what date in the process do they? So it's taking the ideal flow and it's documenting it and putting it into your CRM so that you have reminders, so that you can have 30 signed buyer contracts, or 50 or 60, or maybe you want to be like me and have 89 at a time. That's totally up to you. But you're going to need automation to do it, right? So all these steps in the client process have systems that allow them to work. So it's kind of like when we build teams, and not everybody does the budget right away, and they go, well, I don't know if I'm doing the right economic model. If they're building their teams with our systems, they already are, because every step in the system supports the whole, and the whole supports every step in the system. So how we pay agents, or how we look at our conversion numbers, it all supports an overall system. So they're already building towards a certain budget or a certain way of aligning their money just by using the systems in the process. So these will protect you. They're like your safety net. And finally, at the end, contact management system or CRM, database, like really want to merge those things. Your database management or your client relationship management, some people have multiple CRMs because they have some for lead conversion, they have some for active clients, which is like the client process, and they have some for past clients, because all the systems do different things really well. I know some people really love certain systems because of how they nurture their past clients, because they think it's the same values and beliefs as them, so they'll invest in that great. But a great CRM system is going to help you with your opportunities, which are your needs, your scripting system. It's going to help you with your experience, which is when your clients are active, client process, not just for the client, but also for the different team members interacting with each other. And it's going to help you nurture a community, which is where past clients live, right? And repeat and referral. And that's where we, in the past client community side, that's where we want to differentiate ourselves. Right? We want them to feel like they are part of our group, they know us, they like us, they trust us, and they can see how we're different from, the other massive realtors that they can work with. In the opportunity section, which is at the beginning, that's where you want to have a little bit of magic, right? And it's hard to have magic when we're stumbling over our words or we don't know the next right thing to offer a client. And I can tell you this, you might be offering people something that feels like a right thing because you get a certain amount of deals from it. But if you're looking to really maximize all your opportunities, you want to make sure that you offer the right thing for where the client's at. And that's where it's really important to be conversational consultant. In the middle, it's all about the experience, taking anything that's vague and getting it as close to as precise as possible. So we want to make sure that all our steps in our process are really clear, that if we have administrators, they know exactly how to support us, that the client knows what the steps are. You want to take it from that vague, I'm not really sure, kind of just going with the flow, to this is our process, this is how we move forward, this is how we leverage others. Okay, so there's systems behind all of this. To go virtually remote, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but these are the 5 things that we've focused on to help our network move into virtually remote area with COVID, and then now to assess what do we keep, what do we change as things continue to adapt across North America where our clientele is housed. So we are really excited and happy to say that almost all of our clientele is on track to be able to at least meet 2019 numbers. But the majority of all of our big heavy hitter teams are all actually still on track to reach 2020 goals, which we would have never thought. Like, it's just phenomenal. We had an unbelievable start to 2020. Some of our teams, like out of the gate, were just like rocking it. And so then COVID hit, and we're like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But here's the thing. Because we had this process, we just continued to change our bullseye and plant seeds. So instead of looking at the deals, which is what people traditionally do, we looked at the phone calls, the follow-ups, the appointments, the new client contracts. We knew the deals would potentially be delayed. So having this client process is what allowed us to stay on track for 2020, even with COVID. So we planted all the seeds, the cultivation was delayed, but now it's happening, and we already had a strong start to the year. So this was really vital for us. But here's the cool thing. It's actually kind of what we always do. We just had to remind the network that this is what we always do. We're always focused on planting seeds and nurturing them one step at the process. If they're a delay, that's okay. We'll keep in touch with them. We'll nurture until they're ready. So precise client process has always been our claim to fame with teams. The service over sales, I'm going to talk about today. If I'm pushing the sale, I'm going to lose more sales than I gain. If I'm focused on service, you're going to get so many more people who trust and work with you that you will get more sales in the long run. So focusing on the sales costs us money. Responsive, adaptable, I can environments. So really, like the business, real estate has incredible ability. Even if you've had a hard time through COVID, you have an incredible ability to bounce back. Real estate, we can go out there, we can plant seeds, we can cultivate, we can invest in learning systems that work. Some businesses have been extremely hard hit. The U.S. is definitely in a much harder still situation for many. We've had to focus on solutions and leaning in. That's how you get through difficult times, right? If we're focusing on the problems or what we used to do and waiting for it to come back, that's going to cost us not just time and money, but stress, our health, our mental health, right? So how can we focus really strongly on what we can create? Client decides, we guide. And so we want to guide and give options. We don't need to control, we just need to lead. The client is the one who's going to decide, do I want to move forward and list or buy now? During COVID, do I want to move forward and list or buy now? Our job wasn't to say, why are you thinking of listing or buying? This is a pandemic. Our job was to say, wait a minute, I need to help these people get educated and confident so they can make the best decision for themselves. People are going to call you and say they might buy a house and not buy for 6 months. Just take them through the process and get out of the way and let it either speed them up or slow them down or, decide they're going to buy or sell or not. Goodwill economy is always where it's at. We want to plant as many seeds as possible. You can focus on what's stopping you, or you can focus on planting seeds and creating what you want. Right? Like that's possible for all of us. I mean, there are team leaders who have for years worked weekdays only and dealt with offers only on weekdays, and they've had agents who wanted to work nights or weekends who are buyers agents, right? There are all sorts of different ways to create our businesses and create abundance. You have to invest in getting them there. So we can focus on the ceilings, or we can plant seeds that are going to create the opportunities that we have. So everything that we're doing right now is looking at what we're investing in and how to make it worthwhile for us versus costs. Costs should have been cut before COVID. They should be cut during COVID. They should be cut after COVID. A cost is a cost. An investment is what we pay money to create results in a business. Totally different. Okay. So. All right, so what is our position? I'm going to go through this next part a little bit quicker because I'm just trying to nurture some mindset for everybody. Your interpretation is your value, right? Our value is not getting a list of MLS listings. It's still very valuable to a buyer in the early stages, so we want to be good at offering that. But overall, your value is your ability to interpret the market. It's your ability to bring your experience. You can guide people and allow them to feel safe during what is typically a very stressful process for buyers and sellers. So being on your game, understanding negotiations, understanding other people, understanding how to stay cool. Because remember, if you get emotional, first of all, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. Our emotions are great. I'm going to talk in a minute about, being in touch with them and being aligned. Conscious people are great realtors, right? They're able to take on more, but usually they can take on more because they aren't stressed as easily. They don't get upset as easily. They're not triggered as easily. So they're investing in a lot of personal development to keep their cool, because we want to be able to stay as neutral as possible so that we can support more buyers and sellers. Because if you have a really hard experience with one buyer in that morning, and they get upset with you and they tell you they don't want to work with you anymore, how many hours do you think that's going to upset you in your business? How many days or hours? Just throw in chat. What do you think? You've got a buyer, they tell you off that morning, and they want to cancel the BRA. They're super upset that they booked a showing to see Headway Crescent, and you got a call from the listing agent that Headway Crescent already sold, even though you booked the showing 2 hours ago, and you're super mad. How long do you think that you might be upset after that experience? Just throw it in chat. I'm just curious what you guys think.
How much do you want me to put in?
Depends on the size of your sales, but it depends on how many other opportunities you have, right? Your abundance. I think that's fair, for sure.
Yeah, no, because he was asking you, said
do we think that if we're still upset for the client in the morning, that when we go and meet with 2 other clients later that day, that they might be able to feel it? What do you think? Do you think they can tell? Yeah. Elizabeth says yes for sure. Norm said hours for most, maybe all day. Yeah, and this is a different workshop, so I won't get into it, but when we're upset, like when we have a thought, right? So we think about something, it can be positive, it can be neutral, it can be negative, whichever we choose it to be, essentially. But it's actually, we have a chemical release, right? So there's so much that happens, like we actually have, it's called near neutral. mirror neurons in our brain. So whenever what we're feeling, people literally can pick up on it. They can sense it. So that's why you're really happy, or you look for, I always say, look for gifts in people. You look for people's talents and mirror it back to them, because it allows you to see it in yourself. But people pick up on that energy literally as you're coming in the room. That's why somebody's like, oh, you seem kind of upset, or you seem off. They can pick up on it. And it's going to spread to them. So if you're stressed, or you're unsure, or you're upset by something that happened in the morning, and now you're on the phone and you're trying to do prospecting, you will give that away with your tone and the difficult aura in the room with other buyers. And it will translate to stress for them or risk for them. They'll know something's off. Our capacity in business is largely dictated by our ability to stay neutral and objective. This is really important. You can't expand your business with buyers if everything is getting you kind of unsure, upset, right? You're thinking it depends on what else in the day, what else is in the funnel. They can take more than a day if you don't have enough. Yeah, if you're worried that you don't have enough clients and we're in scarcity, then we feel like we need to kind of run after those people. The minute we get into scarcity, that's when we're in that competitive mind, and it's like that small mind, right? It's the ego mind of going, you're focusing on something you can't control, right? Versus if we're planting seeds and we're constantly trying to nurture everything in our sales funnel, we'll know what is really a client and what is not. We'll stop focusing on people who are not even clients yet, but we'll realize our ability to create abundance and to have a little bit more of a level head. And that's what allows you to have more opportunities in your sales funnel. Because if we're focused on scarcity, we're going to push people too much. We're going to create a lot of stress, a lot of risk in our tone or in our body language, and people are not going to feel comfortable working with us. They won't even be able to tell you why. They'll just feel like something's off, right? Very upset my client was unhappy with my level of service, but I think hours through the day. So the actual chemical reaction in your body is 12 minutes or less. So when you have something that happens and it upsets you, it's 12 minutes or less. And this is actually really important dealing with buyers, because buyers can be stressed and emotional and unsure, and like just it can be a really reactive experience for them. So for us to again deal with the buyers, we need to be at a place where we understand our value. Our value is in navigating and interpreting the market. It's not in taking ownership for their experience or their choices. It's being there as an advocate or a guide on their behalf. So the more I can stay neutral and clear, the more service I can give to that buyer, but also the more I can realize that they aren't in real estate 24/7. That the way people think the market plays out is often not the way it does. So the more that you can position your service and your experience as the value a buyer or seller are getting, the more business you will be able to do. And particularly right now, when supply is really low, but we're going to talk about that in a second. So I find that really empowering for a lot of my clients over the years that, hey, it's only 12 minutes. So you guys might have heard me talk about this before, you might not have. But if it's literally only 12 minutes, the chemical reaction in my body, what's actually happening when I feel upset still like a day later or 5 hours later or 2 hours later?
And
what's actually happening?
You know, booking those showings, she thought that I was like blocking you up, and I was like, you know what? Actually, go ahead. I already know what your budget is, and I already know that it can't be what you want.
I don't know, sometimes you need shares, you're going to type it in. If it's only 12 minutes, they said something, I don't want to work with you, Kathleen, you're the worst agent in the world. And 12 minutes later, technically, the chemical reaction from my body is done. Why am I still feeling upset about it 2 hours later?
So there's this. Did I show you those? I have those two electronic lock boxes, like the two Bluetooth lock boxes I got from this company that was launched through Kickstarter.
Anybody have a guess?
You're just letting your thoughts take control, and you're ruminating on it. Probably you're reliving it over and over.
I've been talking with their
companies. Yeah, that's exactly it. So it's all in your head after that, focus on the impact and not on the next steps. Yeah, we decide, right? Like if somebody says something and we think a certain impression of it, we're deciding that. And if we keep thinking about it, we're human, right? Like I have days I keep thinking about things because it just got under my skin a little bit, and I have people I can talk to, so they can say, Kathleen, are you assuming a lot? Are you assuming? Because most of the time, even with clients, with buyers, it can be such a high stressful situation for them. They're not usually even mad at you as much about what they said it was in the first place. Typically, it could be like they're super stressed out about the process. They're scared they're not going to get a house. Like you are an easy scapegoat depending how you set yourself up if you're working with a large volume of buyers. So I've never worked with an agent who did a high volume of business, who didn't hit many, ceilings, like they call ceilings of complexity, but just ceilings of even volume, where they kind of broke down. They're like, oh my gosh, I have all these clients and everybody needs something from me and what's happening? But it actually was a good thing. Often when we're building our business, we get too much volume, and here we hit those breaking points where many agents, women and men, doesn't matter, like in tears, just overwhelmed. But it's because they're hitting that breaking point where they're like, I can't run my business like this anymore. And if they're going to lean into it, it's the best thing that can happen. I always wait for it to happen, because that's when they get serious about getting efficient and setting things up and actually running with the process. So one of two things happens. You get too busy and you have that kind of breakdown, which I had when I was selling. All agents that I've known of who've grown their business have had them one way or another. You either retreat and go, I can't provide the same level of client experience if I grow, so I'm not going to take on any more than X. And that's fine. Like, maybe that's truly the best model for your business. That's okay. But for other people, they're like, no, like, I know I can do better than this. I know there's another way. I know I want to help more clients. So guess what? I'm not going to do it like this anymore. And they get really serious about who they're going to spend their time and resources on. And lo and behold, they end up to be able to help more clients, do more business, and they're more calm. They're more level-headed because they start to approach it differently, which is why we're going through all of this today. So it's absolutely that. We get what we show up as, right? So if we're frustrated or we're criticizing whatever it is, that's what we're going to get back. So your interpretation is your value. Staying professional, staying like water, that Bruce Lee metaphor is the absolute best one for somebody doing high volume in business, because it allows us to say it's not about being right or wrong. It's not about anything like that. It's about advocating for the client, presenting options to go forward, giving them value, and making sure you're using experience, letting them see through your eyes. So the client owns the pros and cons, the benefits or the consequences of which strategy they take. It's your job to explain the strategy. This is very, very different from saying I'm an agent who sells houses. I'm not an agent who sells houses. I am a licensed real estate agent who provides service. That's what I do. What I do in coaching is very, very similar to what I did when I was working with buyers and sellers. It's almost the same thing. It's helping people reach a goal and guiding them to get there. The product is here nor there, right? So to step into this mentality, you're going to be in a space of opportunity sales, if anything, not product sales. And you're going to see this as we go through the day. This is a really important differentiating factor. Some agents sell houses. They focus on selling a certain product, and they lose out on multiple other opportunities because instead of positioning themselves for someone to hire them, they position themselves to try to push somebody potentially or not, try to get somebody to buy a certain house. And the majority of those people are not going to buy that certain house. And because I didn't position myself for them to hire me, for them to buy my services, I now lost out on that opportunity, or I'm going to chase them. I'm going to spend all this time chasing them that another agent is going to spend actually working with clients because they didn't position themselves the same way. Okay, so that's really, really crucially important to what we're going to be talking about today. Highest positions are paid to think. Right? They're paid to be strategic. They're paid to make the changes, to align a strategy to get people where they need to go. That's what the highest paid people in the world are compensated for. We know we're not paid as much to do rudimentary tasks or, regular hours. We're paid to analyze, plan strategically, and align a vision. And that's what the best agents do, who do the most amount of business for sure. Ironically, they can do more business with this approach than trying to kind of push a certain price for a listing or a certain house for a purchase. As artificial intelligence grows more intelligent, it's essential that we appreciate and protect the separate and innately human qualities like wisdom and wonder. I'm talking about this because even before COVID, for the past couple of years, I've been talking about real estate's like midlife crisis, right? And midlife crisis is in an identity crisis. Where is our value? How are we positioned? We're having all these changes. Where do we actually come in? And should we be in scarcity of our business? And the reality is, again, when you go up to the top 1% and the higher volume teams and agents, they see it very differently. They're not, scared by the technology. They're trying to incorporate technology because they know the difference, right? Sapiens is the ability to think intelligently. Artificial intelligence technology can take all of that on. Sentience is the ability to subjectively experience. That's very important. You guys have experienced the market. You've experienced being in multiple offers and what's likely to happen, and which agents are going to send the offers back, and which agents are going to take the best offer, and that's it, no improvements, right? You've experienced all of this. Whereas somebody who is not from the real estate realm is going to read, an offer, purchase, and sale and interpret it totally differently. They're going to hear bidding war, and they're going to have certain ideas in their head, even if they've bought and sold before. Because how many different versions have you seen of multiple offers, right? How many different versions of negotiations have you seen, depending on the agent on the other side? You guys have that experience to lend them your eyes, and that's the most valuable piece that they're looking to get. I can go and, sell our script book, or I can hand our script book out. I can hand out PowerPoint presentations to thousands and thousands of agents. The likelihood they're going to A, use it, slim to none. But B, that they're going to interpret it and use it the way that our top clients do. They think if they get the content, which is like a buyer or seller being like, well, if you tell me the price, if you give me the MLS listings, I've got all the secret information. That's not really what they want at all. They want the guidance to process the interpretation. They want to make sure they have your expertise to guide them through that process. So it's not, again, them trying to navigate wrong. This is why buyers will work with an agent for 6 months, 8 months, buy nothing. The agent will go, they're illogical, they're never going to buy, they're, window shoppers. 2 weeks later, they call them, they're now DRA is expired, they're working with another agent and bought a house. They're like, I don't get it. What the heck happened? Right? Because that agent was able to actually navigate so they could see the playing field the way the agent did, and they felt confident enough to make a purchase. Really, really important. We can push people to do things, or we can educate them into a place where they feel comfortable enough to make the decisions they need to make. So this is a whole other presentation, but I think it's really important with buyers to bring this, because if you position yourself this way, as that consultant, as that professional, and you set your business up that way, buyers are going to respond to you that way, which is going to save you a ton of time and money and energy, okay, which is what I think we all want. So product versus service. Nothing that I'm talking to you about today is about being a product salesperson. And almost all training in real estate, at least the traditional training, is about how to be a product salesperson. That's not what we want to do. Even for listings, we want to present how we strategically are going to manipulate and work with supply and demand in the market to increase exposure, to increase demand on the property, to ensure that we can negotiate at a higher level. Even in the highest seller's market, you can manipulate a market to sell a house for dramatically more. This is just a fact. But how many agents go, well, it's a seller's market, why do they need to hire me? It's a seller's market. They can put a for sale sign out in front of the house and sell it in an hour. They can sell it in an hour, but how much money are they leaving on the table? It's our job to know that in the position value, okay? So really, really key. This is a massive differentiating factor in the industry right now that's going to define agents in one way or another, because technology is putting us way ahead of that product conversation. Okay, really, really important. At this point, technology is connecting us with people 6 months or more out from when their mentality is of picking a specific product or house. So trying to get their business by focusing on the product is going to backfire more than ever as time goes on with the technology changes that are happening. So this is an example. Chat bars. Okay. So this is an example of why I'm talking to you about this. Okay, so this is the average buying cycle of a buyer for a home in North America. There's 3 distinct phases that they go in. The average cycle is 14 weeks, but most buyers who are actually looking for lists of homes, if you're doing if you're driving people to your website, but it's more likely to be unbranded sites, to be honest, not still compliant with your word, but I'm talking about neutral companies who are putting up listings or websites that are less branded. They're more focused on the value to the consumer. The less branded websites, so the less in the face, let's say it that way, stealth websites, are going to attract people much earlier on in the process, and they're actually going to get a much higher volume of business, a much higher volume of leads. So those are typically 6 months or more out. And what's great is some of those buyers are going to sell. So we're connecting with people so early in the process, it's before they start getting referred to other agents. It's before they start bringing listing agents in. We already are securing those relationships before they're even thinking about what agent to work with, because we know that initially they're not thinking of hiring us. Look at the first phase. It's information collection. So initially, people are looking for generic, reports, information on should they move, is it a good time to move, if they're a first-time buyer, just trying to get their head around what do they need to know to move. Only once they get to the second phase are they even looking for houses, but here it's mostly prices and pictures, or like virtual tours, things like that. They're not even getting too much into like the video tours. It's more pictures, prices, and like your 3D tour that they can manipulate. Once they get in the last 8 weeks, that's when they're narrowing down more to the type of house, maybe the neighborhood, maybe. They might still be in the overall city. Typically, referrals actually happen in your second stage.
I'm still trying to find ways.
Narrowed down to those last 8 weeks, they're already either talking to their past agent, or they've got friend or family member who's referring them, right? When we get excited, we start talking. So in information section, we don't want to talk to anyone. We don't want to tell our family anything about moving. We don't want to talk to the Remax logo page, right at home, Better Homes and Gardens. We don't want to talk to anybody, right? We just want the information without having to talk to a salesperson. This is why your communication system is so vitally important, because they're not looking to hire you. So again, imagine if you're talking to that person in information collection and you're trying to push a certain home. They're not even mentally there yet. They haven't narrowed even down what they can afford or the type of home. They're just going to tell you, well, I don't even know. Or we don't know what you're talking about. We don't know where we want to be. We don't know where we want, right? They're not even there yet. The second phase is where they start to have referrals. This is why when we're great at follow-ups with buyers, we want to really not be scared at that first stage, because that's going to get in some kind of competition. This is where agents who are repeat referral system focused only are losing more and more business every single year. We have more of those agents call and say, I can't believe it. Like, not only do I have past clients not even calling me and listing or buying with other agents, but when they are calling me, I'm competing. And I've never had to compete in the past. I don't have a buyer presentation, I have a listing presentation. I've never had to do that. And they're super frustrated because they're going up against people who have always competed or have always worked with cold business, who are very, very strong at securing the clients in front of them, right? So the key here is to understand that right now, there's a couple of things I want to point out. For most of us, and I don't know across the board because we have people across Canada on here, but for most of us who are in strong urban markets, like sellers that are right now, sellers market or even its market, supply is lower than usual in almost all of our markets across Canada. Not all, but all the bigger cities. Supply is lower. So if I'm trying to focus right now on product, okay, they have like, I have a house on Main Street, it's perfect, I'm going to try to get in touch like Main Street. First of all, Main Street's priority sold tomorrow, if I have the chance. But there's two factors that are going to be really hard on you right now if you're focused on product. Number one, supply. There's just not enough homes. So we've got active buyers out, we don't have enough homes, we're competing, it's taking longer to get them in those properties. Number two, the other issue right now is confidence, buyer and consumer confidence. Luckily, the urgency of the lack of supply is getting people into action where they're acting and looking for homes. If we had the supply, we'd have far less confidence in the market right now with everything with COVID. But those two things are making it very dangerous to not have a client process, because if I have a buyer consultation and I have a BRA, buyer representation agreement, you might sign it for 6 months, you might sign it for 12 months, you might sign it for 90 days. But if you are trying to do the traditional, I'll meet you at the house, I'll show you the house, try to sell you the house, the majority of the people you're going to talk to either don't have the confidence yet to act on that home, or they don't have the confidence to act on it in multiple offers because they're too green in the process, or the supply is moving too quickly, you can't even find the right house for them. So the majority of people that agents traditionally who are like buy now, sell now are going to work with, they're going to lose the majority of that business right now. So it's extremely important that we have these processes so we can expand our time period to be able to help people buy and sell, so we can nurture their confidence and we can have a bit more time for supply to increase or to lose out on a couple of multiple offers if we need to, right? Until we get where we need to be. This is one of the key reasons why we train on buyer systems first, because if you're dealing with a lot of lead opportunities, most of them, I'm going to show you right now, are going to be a buy first offer. I'm not saying they're going to buy first. I'm saying we're going to offer them something to do with buy first. because there's 4 types of clients, and over 75% of the time we want to offer a buyer opportunity. Number one, they own a home and they want to sell it before buying their next, right? So that's very straightforward. Sell it. They own a home and they want to buy their next home first. They don't currently own a home, first time buyer, or they've sold in the past, or they're looking to invest. All those are all just overall 75% of our offers we could make would be buyer value proposition. In reality, when we actually track it, if you have a really high volume base, you are going to find 90 to 95% of offers are actually going to be buyer. Okay? Now, again, doesn't mean we don't get listings. Why are they buyer? Because you want to book an ideal appointment. A client process says you want to secure the next step in the link, right? That's going to give you the highest chance to secure the next one. So it's not enough to say, well, I'm going to book a buyer consultation because I'm going to meet with the client. I also need to know, if I book a buyer consultation, am I having the highest chance that they're going to see value and choose to hire me? This is really important. So I'm going to ask you right now, if you're talking to people who are unsure of the market because of COVID, they have a house that's going to sell in 2 seconds if they let you list it, but they're unsure they can find the right buyer for that house, or they don't know if they should buy or sell first, right? They're later on in the process. If you booked a listing appointment for either of those 2 people right now, do you think you have a higher likelihood of getting a listing contract, or would you have a higher likelihood of getting a buyer contract if you booked a buyer appointment? And just think about that for a second, right? So my job is to get the next chain in the link, but also to make sure what I pick is going to give you the highest likelihood of securing the next step in the process, which is the next chain. This is really, really important. 90 to 95% of the time, and keep in mind, this is if you're dealing with a decent volume, it doesn't have to be high volume, but decent volume, okay? 90 to 95% of the time, if we're having a conversational call and really listening, you will have a higher chance of securing an agreement, so someone hiring you, on the buy side if you book that appointment first. And if they own a home, you might do a rough evaluation. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get the buyer consultation, maybe do a bit of market education, increase their confidence, and then right after book that listing presentation. And they might list first, and they might sell first. That's nothing to do with what we're going to offer on the phone. On the phone, it's always the path of least resistance. This is why the buyer consultation is a billion-dollar tool across top real estate teams, because we understand we're positioning to be higher. We're not just positioning for the deal we want. We're positioning for them to see value in hiring our services. And those are 2 very different things. If they hire us for our services, I don't care which house they buy. I want them to buy the right house for them. The more buyers I have, the more I can mix up for my listings anyway. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about overall opportunities. Okay? Any questions, concerns about what I'm talking about? Because this is really important for how you're going to position yourself to use this presentation. So I just want to check. Are we good? Makes sense?
No, it's really good because
actually, okay, cool.
Remember, like I showed you the Kathleen Black stuff for.
All right. So typically, obviously, we're trying to focus on products. So therefore, some people who use agents, all these unfortunate things happen. This is actually a slide in the buyer consultation. Some of these things that clients really get frustrated about, 3-home shuffle, you can show them 5 houses and then don't help them. All these things come from being product focused, right? So unfortunately, they're not helping our reputation overall in the market, and buyers really feel uncomfortable with that. So being able to be opportunity focused, service focused allows us to kind of skip over a lot of the negativity that buyers get frustrated in. So we're looking to move from product into service. We're looking to move from a sales mentality into a consulting mentality, where we're advocates, we're neutral, we're like water, we're trying to guide the options in the process, and we're leaving the client completely in control. So we're coming out of the mentality right now, which I'm hoping we kind of see the positioning. So again, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in there. And we're getting into the science part of it. So we're coming from the art into the science. So the first part of that is the communication, which is not the focus of today. So we're going to be a little bit quicker on this. But everybody was sent a pre-work, a questionnaire, as well as pre-work, and a buyer value proposition. So you were supposed to memorize the buyer value proposition before you came into this this workshop. But at this point, if you have a pre-work, I'm going to get a little bit of feedback from everybody on how it went. So you were to call a couple of agents and ask for information about a listing. And this is really important. Like, I don't know any major industry that doesn't do comparative analysis overall. And I know some agents feel uncomfortable, like, I don't want to call another agent about our property. But really, if you want to know what other agents are doing around you in your area, it's actually a great thing to do. If you do any SWOT analysis, you should be doing things like that just to have a sense of it. So I'm going to ask a couple of people how it went for them, but pre-work comparison, you can unmute or you can put it in chat. What questions did the agents ask when you called them? Who called agent? What questions did they ask? So just unmute actually would be great if you did this. Bill, are you unmuted?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you are.
That's what I was imagining. It's like
It shows you unmuted. I can't hear you.
Like Garden Family Guy. Remember, like a dog.
I'm not unmuted now. I just got the pre-work yesterday, last night, so I haven't been able to call anybody. I apologize. We just signed up for this yesterday afternoon.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I recommend anybody who did sign up, and we're still glad you're here, so I didn't know you signed up. Yesterday afternoon, but we're happy that you are here. I'll circle back to you on one of the other parts of it, Bill, but anybody who signed up last minute, highly recommend. It'll be really enlightening for you to do this pre-work. I think you unmuted too. Did you do the call?
No, it's like me. Yes, I went called yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
Last minute, sorry. I had a little bit, but I didn't have time to.
Yeah. Put it on your action. Do it after. Again, it'll be really interesting. Who did do the calls, the pre-work? You guys might give us. Elizabeth shaking your head no. Hold on a sec. Norm, did you do the pre-work?
Kathleen, I actually got the email yesterday about 2:30, so I didn't even see it until after dinner, and I didn't.
Did everybody get the original email though? Like when you registered with the pre-work, that would have come right after you registered. Like that's the one that had the survey and the pre-work and the buyer value proposition question. I just want to make sure everybody got it in general. Did we get that? Other one? A lot of people signed up last minute. Okay. Right. All right. So I'm just looking down. Okay. I'm going to give you guys some insight on how this usually goes. And there's a couple of questions with this because this is the main part of the communication thing. What questions did the agent ask when you called? The most typical response that we get is none. They asked what house we were calling about. They gave us the information right away. We actually had it a couple of times where we said, wow, no, I called this team and like they asked me all these things and it was really good. And we're like, what team were you working with? And then we laughed like, they use our system, we train them. And so, but the majority of agents aren't asking any questions. They're waiting for the client to say, hey, I want to know about, Brentwood Crescent or whatever it is. They're answering the questions about Brentwood Crescent. They get off the phone and they think it was just, not a lead opportunity, just a complete waste of time. If we don't have the right structure in how we're approaching the call, we're not going to get the opportunities of the call. It's extremely important. So that's what I said again. Once you master the consultation, make sure that you go back to the communication. If they offer you anything, the majority of the time, it's either they offer to show the house or they didn't offer anything, or the agent said, I just told them I'd drive by, and they didn't offer anything. Even for a lot of the teams who are strong with buyer conversion and they come to work with us, what Shannon and I noticed is one of the top things missing is that they actually don't have a buyer value proposition, which is a major problem. So they're not offering anything of value that the buyer can say yes to, which means they have nothing to take them to a Zoom bio presentation. Okay, if you're writing notes, you really want to emphasize that. You need to offer something of value. That's why the buyer comes to Zoom, to see your buyer consultation. Okay? What was the chance of them booking you for buyer consult using their approach? Oh, Bill said, I happen to have called an agent on the weekend on a signed call for a client. The agent didn't ask anything. They waited for me to ask them what I wanted to know. Yeah, that's very common. Okay, I'll check with Stacy. I'm not sure. Yesterday, you guys definitely should have got an email with the workbook, but initially when you got the first confirmation email, there was some pre-work in it, so I'll double check why it might have gotten, I'm hoping it should have been easy to see, but I'll look back and double check after. So what was the chance of them booking for a buyer consult with their approach? I've slim to ever, other than when they ended up to call teams that we were working with, had anybody say that they were thinking or offering anything even close to a buyer consult. Like it's typically a showing or nothing at all. I've had agents I've trained who are in the business like 20, 25 years who said, Kathleen, I always thought these phone calls were just a waste of time. I cannot believe, like, and they fought me on it. Like, this isn't going to work. I'm going to try your script. It's not going to work. They're going to end up to me. These people are wasting my time. And right after, they're like, I can't believe it. They booked a consultation like all these years. I'm shocked. The last time we ran this buyer workshop, somebody actually got a lead on their listing in the morning, and they waited, and they were coaching one, so they had our script, but they hadn't been using them yet. So they messaged their coach, who is Sandra, sitting with us, and over lunch they called, and she came back, and she's like, sure enough, I can't believe it. Like, I spread the script, I booked the appointment, whereas usually I just would have gotten information, gone off the phone, and nothing would come of it, right? So it's all about how we structure the call. So your pre-work as well, what was the chance with them working with you as a buyer if you liked the house versus if you did not like the house? So when you do this pre-work, pay attention to what that is. I'm not going to give you all the answers. What is the likelihood of a caller buying the house they call about? This I've told you guys a couple times today. So buyer calls you guys on your listing or a team listing or a brokerage listing, whatever, and they're talking to you. What's the likelihood, percentage-wise, that they are going to purchase that property? Throw it in chat. You can unmute. I said it a couple times today. I just want to see if anybody picked it up. Hey, Bill, next to zero. Yeah. 2%. You said, yeah. Robin, you said 1%. Yeah. 99, 98, 99% likelihood when we track it that they're actually going to buy the house they call about. It's slim to none. But yet, we're taught, they call about the house, get them the house. They call about the house, offer showing, right? Like it's the path of least resistance. It's the path of least resistance to the client, but it's not the path of least resistance to them hiring you. Not even close. And in fact, even for the client, 99% they're not going to buy that house. So it's not helping them get closer to their goal, which is what all consultants are paid more money for, right? It's not the rudimentary task of let's see the house. It's the strategy of how am I going to get them where they want to be at the end of the day. So we want to ask questions, be conversational. We want to offer value, which is your buyer value proposition that you guys all got a copy of. Make sure you go back in your pre-work. It is there. If you don't have that, you can just respond to our email. Stacy will make sure that you have a copy of it. And then we want to go to terms or details, right? Like remember time, date, location. Okay. So that's the most that we're going into the phone communication, except for you need an example of a buyer value proposition. So this is the standard proposition we'll make to anybody who is a look first, buy first, first-time buyer, investor, not sure if they should buy or sell first. If they're on the fence, they tip buyer, okay? It's all-encompassing offer that's designed to get people to say yes. Is designed for all personality types, and it's designed in a what's in it for the buyer, not a what's in it for us as the agent. We don't ever want to offer the value proposition unless the client's already basically told us that it'll help them, that they'll see value in getting access to more information, having help navigating the buying process. And it is going to be 75% of the time of your offers. Like if you had 4, you could offer it be 75%, but overall it's going to be like 80 to 90%. Usually what you actually offer all people you book an appointment for. And you do not ask the client if they want what you have. You want to tell them what you could do for them, and they say yes or no to that. You never want to mix up them meeting with you with the value. You offer the value first, they say yes or no, then you tell them the terms, right? Going back to, So we have the conversation, which is where they tell us what they want. We offer the value because they already told us they wanted it. We're not getting on the phone with people just like offering value proposition. That's a great way to lose a lot of valuable client leads. People don't really respond well to it unless they're really about to buy or sell and they're almost certain personality styles. So we want to ask a lot of questions so we know what they need, when they need it, what's important to them, and only then we gauge, hey, if I offer value right now, are they going to see enough value in a buyer consultation ahead of me? Because I'm always thinking one step ahead of the next one, right? And from there, what are the terms? Are we meeting on Zoom? Are we meeting at their house? Who needs to be there? How much time is it going to take, right? That's when you get the terms. You never mix value with terms or cost. It's the old school, cost is only an issue in the absence of value, right? So if I mix what I'm offering with meeting with somebody might say no or object to me, but it's more because they don't want to meet with me, not because they don't want what I'm offering. So I don't want to mix those two things up. So your value proposition, our example of ours is here. I'm just going to move, I got my chat open here. So, well, what I can do for you is send you daily emails of all the homes that match what you're looking for. So you notice your, all in the first sentence. That's very intentionally because we want it to be not about us, it's about them. So it's designed to kind of open their ears. So, well, what I can do for you is send you daily emails of all the homes that match what you're looking for. What I'm going to send will have the address, the price, and all available photos, all the information just like I get as a realtor. It will update you daily by sending out only what is new or has had a price change the instant it becomes available. Oh, and our clients also get access to power of sales, estate sales, and other great deals. Would you be interested in this information as well? So when you learn this is the first thing we memorize. You want to internalize it, and the end of it is like a question. Your voice goes up. Whereas the second part, okay, great, we're going to meet, or we're going to go on Zoom, or this is how much time it's going to take. That's more of a statement. It's a little bit different. So this is like a question, and you want it to be you want to memorize it, so it's almost like a song. Like you have a certain rhythm to it, so you're emphasizing in the right places. You're going to create your own buyer value proposition. Maybe you're going to use ours. You want your strongest points to be at the end. The strongest, most valuable points should be at the end. So some people in Canada still say foreclosures. We have tax sales. We don't technically have foreclosures, but they still say it. Why? Because the public doesn't necessarily know that, and they're still looking for foreclosures. So you want to be offering what a buyer, think about this, like the initial process is looking for. And you want to have a little bit of planting seeds of doubt that they might not already be getting this. Right? That's important because remember, the typical agent is going to try to take them to see the house. They're not doing a buyer consultation. They're not talking about a buyer representation. So when we offer this, they come to our buyer consultation and we explain it, there's a high likelihood they are now going to hire you, even if they've had another agent showing them houses, because that agent didn't put them in a position to hire them or compensate them or protect time and resources, right? Just opening up chat here. So let's get an example. I know we have a couple of coaching clients on here, so I'm thinking, and I heard, Bill, do you want to give this one a shot? Do you know the buyer value proposition?
When you do it online, it's always more difficult. But what I can do for you is send you daily emails of all the properties that match what you're looking for. What I will send to you will have all the addresses, prices, photos, all the available photos available, and all the information I get as an agent, as a realtor. The daily email will only have what is new or has changed the prices on the market. Oh, and by the way, our clients also receive information on foreclosures, estate sales, and other great deals. Is that something of interest to you?
Awesome. Good job. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, good job. And I am looking at, I'm just realizing we took our last break a little bit late. And Bill, how did it take you just before we take a quick break? Because I think everyone's trying to turn around. How long did it take you to memorize it?
Honestly, it probably, to memorize that, it probably took a good week of going over it. I could remember most of the gist of it, but to get the verbiage where I felt comfortable with it, it was probably a good week of over and over and over again.
Awesome. Yeah, I usually say it 5 times out loud every single morning, and then if it's off, write it out, turn it over, read it again. In a week, it'll sound pretty fluid, but in a couple of days, the first couple of days, it sounds a bit robotic and rough, I would think, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the process for sure. Okay.
And I think it helped to record it as well.
Oh, did you record yourself and listen to it?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that will help. If you're an auditory learner, I've had people do that with the bio consultation. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like they'll finalize their version of the script or coach and find use ours. Then they record it and they'll listen to it in the car. And they'll get they listen mine when they're trying to learn it, whichever way. And it helps. If you're auditory, that's so helpful in retaining scripts for sure. Thank you for that. Anybody else know the buyer value proposition who wants to give us an example before we take a break? And most people have turned off their video. When we come back after lunch, and we get you to turn them back on, just so we can make sure we're all present, engaged, and I know if you have questions. Anybody else have it memorized? Looking, they don't want to tell me. Not yet? And Shannon's lost her voice, so usually I get her to do it, but let's see.
Hi, Kathleen. I actually have experience with the script, and I can round it off right now if you want.
Oh, awesome. Hold on, I can't, it's not showing you who's speaking. Is this Nathan?
Yeah, it's Nathan, and I gotta close the door so I can take my mask off so I'm not so muffled, so please bear with me.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Sorry about that. But usually I always make it sound like an epiphany after all my questions, and it would be like, well, you know what I can do for you is I can send you daily emails of all the homes that match exactly what you're looking for, okay? What I'm going to send you is going to have the address, price, all available photos, the same information that I get as a realtor. It's going to update you daily, sending you not only what's new and has had price changes the instant they become available. Oh yeah, by the way, actually, and I know I didn't say it perfectly, sorry, but oh yeah, by the way, my clients also get access to power of sales, estate sales, and distressed properties. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Yes, for sure.
Excellent. That's it. Listen, all we've got to do is put 15 minutes aside. Let's sit down, talk a little bit more about what you're looking for, and get the right process in place. Do you have some time on Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday sounds great.
Sorry, I'm done showing off. I'm done.
No, you're good. Yeah. Thank you. Bill said awesome, Nathan. Yeah, fantastic. And I love that you said it's kind of like, I don't know if you said epiphany, but you want it to be natural depending on who you're speaking to. You might adjust it a little bit, but it should be like that. Like, hey, you know what I could do for you is, and make sure you go up again with the question, which you did, Nathan. So thank you for that, for sure. Because it sounds very natural in a call. That's what I want everyone to know. We're not focusing. If you want to focus more on the call again, we have those other resources. But when you get used to saying it, it does sound like, okay, I have an idea. Here's how I can help you. Right? I love that. So we are taking a break late, but we will still take it because I promised that we would. I'll try better to stay track with them in the afternoon. So we're going to take 9 minutes until 11:30 because we already have lunch at noon. Okay? So quick 9-minute break. We'll see you back at 11:30. if you're looking for that, if you're a quick client, you have access to our script that you can memorize. Some people still prefer just to do 1 point. The full script is where you get the highest levels of conversion, but not everybody is quite there yet. They kind of grow into it. The presentation is combined at this point, well over 6 years combined experience, but we literally have thousands of agents across North America who use our systems. It sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of agents. I mean, there's over 60,000 in Toronto alone. So thousands of agents that use these systems that we track, and so we know exactly what the success rates are and what the averages are for agents that use these systems with us. So we continue to modify it. Definitely, we don't make huge changes. There's a reason why every 2 years we do release a updated visual, because PowerPoint gets out of date visually very quickly now. Like, I can't even believe how quick it can look out of date. So every 2 years we release new visual listing presentation and buyer presentation for our coaching clients. We have graphic designers in-house who do that, and then they can customize it to their look, or they can just take our new one every 2 years and put their logo and run with it, because it takes an incredible amount of time for us to update them, whereas they can just plug in and get a copy of that. So this November we will be, it'll have been 2 years, and we'll be releasing our latest updates, but we don't do dramatic changes to the main flow of the presentation or the language unless we tested it and it works better than the prior version, because there's no reason to wipe out something that's getting great results just because we're like, well, the world's changed. If it's working, keep trying to make it a little bit better. So we'll test things if we change them, or if, there's legitimate changes in the market or a protocol that we have to change it. But otherwise, it's just small little tweaks as necessary. And we've been able to hold really strong percentages for our top agents when it comes to converting to a buyer contract. So we want to think about not wasting our time building a relationship before we ask for the commitment, because again, we're offering services now. So just like a listing, somebody can hire us up front, and then we will devote our time, energy, attention, and money, right? We're in our car, we're in our gas, we're putting our resources out there to help those people, just for people who have hired us as their clients. This allows us, again, to do so much higher volume of business, because I'm not just kind of putting my time and energy all over the place. I'm having a vested interest with the people I'm working with. So I know a higher percentage of those people will end up to buy with me. Not all of them will buy with me, but a higher percentage. So while a lot of agents are, doing another test drive, so to speak, we already have the exclusivity on the sale. We're nothing like car salespeople, unless they're like a broker model, right? Because we can help people buy almost any house, except for an exclusive where they won't cooperate, obviously. But we have that exclusivity on them working with us already, when other people are still trying to find that right house and hope that they buy with them. And unfortunately, they're teaching the client to see them that way too. Like, hey, if you can't find the right house, hey, if another agent does whatever, it's all about the house. Instead of, no, I can help you find anything that's available. Here's the only limitations to that. And my job is to make sure that we narrow down your wants and needs, so we find you the best options that are available in the market. It's a very different mentality that we want to work with. You're still going to build relationships, but we're not going to do it with customers. We're going to do that with clients. We're not going to waste our time going all over the place for people who aren't necessarily ever going to buy or sell with us. And now we're going to think about buyers the same way as we think about a listing or a sell. And we're going to move it over, because that mentality is easier for us to step into with the buyer consultation PowerPoint. Most of us would not list a home for 2 weeks and do all the marketing and stage it and do everything else that we do with listings these days, virtual tours and 3D tours and everything else, and floor plans and, virtual renovations. There's so much that we do. Most of us would not do that for 2 weeks for the seller to have a test drive and go, okay, you can go with somebody else after we put all that time, energy, and money out. But yet, it seems very normal to do this with buyers. And the reason is just that we don't have an approach that works and makes it easy. And with this presentation, this system, it legitimately is almost too easy. People are shocked at how well it works when they actually just follow the protocol. So we're going to take people through a specific journey, right? So a journey of why it's important for a buyer from their perspective to have their own agent first, to have you as their agent, because educating them on having their own representation is great, but you still want them to see why choosing you. So again, going back to the professional side of it, not having their own agent is legitimately like going to court without a lawyer and expecting your opponent's lawyer to represent you as well. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but in real estate, we've done things like that for so long that it kind of just seems like, status quo, right? So we don't just want to explain why it's important that they have their own lawyer if they go to court. We now want to differentiate why we're the right lawyer for them to pick, right? Most people know they need a lawyer, unless they can't have one, can't afford one, whatever it is, but most people, for something serious, believe that they want or need a lawyer. So I want or need a lawyer. I'm interviewing 3 of them, or I've talked to you and I've talked to 3 other lawyers that I've called about their services. Why is it that I should pick you? That mentality makes a lot more sense for what we want to explain to the buyer. Dealing with your mortgage brokers, because that's another key area where the chain of commitment gets dropped, and following your systematic approach to home buying so that you can lead them and they can be happy and not feel pushed and understand that you're guiding them and you're following their pace. It's your route, it's your path, but it's their pace, right? If they want to move forward, they want to have a pause, if it's good for them and their family, that's all 100% in the buyer's control as it should. At the end of the presentation, the goal is that the client is going to feel overwhelmed with value, and they are going to want to hire you. They're not going to see, if you've done a great job, they're not going to see the buyer representation agreement as a cost at all. I just want to put that out there. They're going to see it as the ability to secure your services so that they know you're working with them. That's not a cost if they want to work with you. If they're unsure or they're stressed or there's pressure, then you have to hope that there was enough value in the presentation that they still choose to hire you. But the key is that if you've done a great job, they're not going to see that as a big cost whatsoever. And that's why such a high percentage of people choose to sign with. Okay? And we have a question: if you get strong pushback but have a feeling that they can be a good client, what are your thoughts on agreeing to revisit the VRA after the first marketplace education? This is another one of the reasons why we love market education, because it gives you that next step in the process. So if, sometimes they're going to be listing a house as well, and they start to, confuse the listing decision with the buying decision, and you'll go in market education and then kind of book a CMA after so they can decide on both right away. And I would recommend not to make it too much further out than that. Then you could, I would say, Nathan, I easily could tell you, it's not a big deal. You can do market education at the beginning, you might. But if I'm being totally honest with you and you're saying, hey, I want to model the best way that this works, the best agents with this are still signing 90-95% or more of all the buyers to a contract right at the initial buyer consultation. So the better you get at trying to provide more value so the client wants to hire you, the less likely you're going to have to do that. The problem is some agents have trouble or pushback with the buyer representation agreement. So instead of getting better at their presentation or explaining it or overcoming objections, they just go, okay, let's just go market education and can decide after. But often they don't actually get paperwork after. So they end up to just continue doing showings with people who haven't selected them. But there are exceptions. I just don't want you to base your business off of, that 1%, right? Okay, so we want to give enough value that people are happy to be working with us. They want us to be representing them throughout this process. So why do we want to use the consultation? I alluded to this a little bit at the beginning of the day, and we'll get into the prep, and then we'll take our lunch break, and then we'll dive way into the PowerPoint. So I'm glad you guys on a lunch break. Do some stretching, go outside, get some fresh air if you can, please, because I know it's a whole day, and I want your brains to be good and ready after lunch. So we want to use this to stand apart from the competition. Agents often, I always bring up the typical objections. So are they going to want to do a presentation? And are they going to want to sit in front of it? And the people are making them do a presentation. It actually is the most common response that people are like, wow, this is I didn't know any of this. Or why didn't agents take me through this in the past? The idea that a buyer consultation is just for first-time buyers is not valid whatsoever. With repeat buyers, if it's your own client, you might speed it up a little bit because they saw it with you before, right? But if it's a new client from the outside, it doesn't matter if they bought and sold 10 times. The likelihood is it hasn't been with this information or this process. It's very unlikely. And even if it had, they probably don't remember. within a week, when somebody leaves your office and you do an amazing job, somebody might know the answer. If you do, that's fine. Just put in chat. If you do an amazing job with a buyer consultation, right when they leave the office, what percentage of information do you think they're consciously retaining out of the presentation that you take a buyer? Not you, like the buyer or seller. What do you think? Throw it in chat. What percentage do you think they could retain? Yep, perfect. 20 to 25% maximum. Like if you're a superstar and you do an amazing job with the presentation, that's all they're going to retain. And hopefully, if you use the presentation properly, that 20 or 25% is part of usually what we're repeating, right? So you'll notice the presentation is repetitive. It's intentional. Don't go through that. I already said that. They haven't heard this presentation. People need to hear things later. Like today, I'm layering information for you guys. I'm saying it in different ways because I know I want some things are important and I want them to retain a little bit more. And I know nobody's going to retain 100% of today. So I want you to get the key things. So 20 to 25%, you want it to be the most important things that they leave with. So they're excited about working with you. They're excited about the next step. So often, even if you presented or they had another agent who presented a buyer price to them like a year or 2 or 3, it's more likely than 3 or 4 years before, they won't remember the majority of it. They're not going to remember it was the same thing. It's going to create a feeling for them, and they're going to retain you and hire you again the same way they did before the other agent was with it. Do you want to impress every agent you make a presentation to? And I think most people do. Different is better than better, right? We can try to be better than the competition. We're better off to be different and make sure that we have a positive impression. And a buyer consultation will 100% do that for you. It'll also lead to a smoother process, which we'll talk about a little bit more now in after lunch. So the key that we want to do here is that we want to build a bridge. Okay, so we want to build a bridge because here's the idea from a buyer's perspective. So they can come onto a Zoom or come into an office before COVID or, eventually in the future, right? And you could say, hey, it's really great to meet with you. I just want to sit down. I have some paperwork to go over. And you've already got, your provinces and your boards, buyer exclusivity or buyer representation agreement in front of you. Sitting there in Ontario, you're working with the realtor forms. You have all those paperwork out on the table. How do you think the buyer is going to feel? So they walk into a room, they've never met you. Like remember, you might have talked to them, maybe you've done 5 follow-up calls with them, but they've never actually usually met you at this point, or they met you at an open house briefly. Like it's usually not extensive. They see all that paperwork out there, they're going to feel stress. It's going to create stress. Formal legal paperwork creates feelings of stress, apprehension, of fear, or worse, what fear. So we can meet with somebody and we can say, hey, great, I'm so excited to meet with you. I'm so looking forward to helping you guys buy a house. We have a little bit of paperwork to do. I'm going to take you through this contract of hiring me. Do you want to go forward with that process? It's the same thing as meeting with somebody and having a big gorge in front of you and saying, hey, just take my hand, let's jump, trust me. Most buyers are not going to jump. They're going to be unsure and they're going to want to leave the office. So the first thing they're going to see is paperwork that's going to make them apprehensive. That's not a good first impression. So instead, we want to actually use the metaphor of building a bridge. A great buyer consultation, each section in it is going to represent a pillar. So my recommendation is you want to be really strong at each section of the presentation, which will make you strong at the whole, right? So you want to win in how you position the presentation at the beginning. You want to win in step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6. And at the end, you don't even need a close because you've gone through this journey with the client. They're on the other side of the gorge already because as you agreed on things, you built this bridge and therefore they felt educated, they felt comfort, which made them feel trust-free. That's what we want to achieve. So at the end of the bridge, we sit there and go, well, do you still want to walk across the bridge? And do you still agree on this? We go back and just say, hey, we talked about this, we talked about this. I'm still going to do all of that. Does that sound good? Yes, great. So all we need is a commitment of loyalty that we're going to be able to work together, that I represent you throughout this process, and we're all set. That is going to allow you to get people to see you as their agent without even asking them to hire you. The best close is no close because you're creating an experience where either consciously or subconsciously they're already looking to you as agent. And the buyer consultation is going to do that. It's not going to say, and this is really important, please make sure you hear this, the buyer consultation is not going to say anything that's like so magic, okay? It's not going to say information or facts that even a new realtor wouldn't know, okay? It's not. The reason the buyer consultation is magic, if it is that it follows a logical approach. It creates an experience for a buyer that creates good emotions, that creates trust. So it creates a state in the buyer where they feel overwhelmed with value, they feel comfortable and confident, and they're willing to exchange what you offer them for loyalty. That's what it does. So you might say the same things to your buyers, but it's not in the same order, or you're not repeating the right things, or you're not using the right language to appeal to the right personality types or the right learning styles. Maybe you're auditory, so you're saying everything, but you've got a lot of visual people and they need to see it, or they need to have something a little more hands-on, right? So our consultation is built to appeal to all personality types, all types of people, all learning styles. The language is built around what's in it for the buyer. So it's going to elicit a very predictable, consistent response from the buyers that you're working with this presentation. That's the difference. It's not what we're saying, it's the order we're saying it in the state that we're creating for those buyers. So the why behind the presentation, obviously sales, if you believe it's the transfer of comfort or service is creating confidence, comfort, and trust, it's like somebody recommending you invest in the stock market. If you're investing a lot of money, you're not going to invest with somebody who's just like, hey, I have this like great tip and you want to do this. You're only going to do that if it's somebody you highly, highly trust and feel comfortable with. Information doesn't matter unless you trust the person and the approach they're bringing it to you. The idea that information is valuable in and of itself doesn't make any sense. So we need an environment that creates trust for the person delivering the information, which is you. So education creates trust, which creates comfort. That's the journey that we want to take people on with the buyer consultation, so that they're already seeing you as the trusted advisor, representative, we call it the wisdom era. There's another word that some people use, but anyways, it's kind of coming out of the information era into the wisdom era. So what's going on in the buyer's mind? So when they're doing this presentation, whether it's a buyer or a seller, doesn't matter, listener presentation, buyer presentation, there's a reel going over again and again and again. Every single person, let's even say you're doing a phone call, okay? There's a reel going over again and again and again for every human when they're listening to something that is like offered to them or an option they could pick. That's saying, what do I stand to gain choosing you, making a decision right now, over and above hiring the other person down the street, over and above, I'm hiring none of you, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know what's going on, and when people are overwhelmed, they do what? Nothing, right? When we're overwhelmed, we freeze. We're just like, I don't feel good about this. We make all decisions based on how we feel. People feel something, and then they use logic to justify how they're already feeling. The logic might not even make sense. It's just used to communicate how they feel. So we need to remember that person is listening with that reel going, what do I stand to gain working with you over and above the competition, over and above, should I even be hiring anybody to do this right now? We need to make sure that we're constantly answering those questions in a comfortable, safe way so people don't feel overwhelmed and choose not to make any decision. So I'm going to challenge you that you want to feel so strong with this presentation that you legitimately feel that, 95% of the potential buyers you could talk to would be losing out if they didn't work with you. Now, keep in mind, I don't believe in ego mentality in any way. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a place that you trust yourself, that you trust you are going to go over and above for the buyers that you serve, that you know you're going to be honest, you know you're going to educate them, you know you're going to take care of them. You have to believe that, and it has to be true. That's the thing. We have to constantly invest in our knowledge of what we do, right? Be expansive. But if you believe that, then you can be in front of somebody and be so genuine that they can feel that safety and trust and know that they actually want you to work with them. They know that you're going to do something that maybe a large percentage of other realtors are not. Maybe they're not going to do as great of a job, or they don't have a client process. They can't allow that client to feel safe. They don't have the experience you have. You need to feel that legitimately they are losing out if they don't hire you. You want to be that confident when you do a buyer consultation. And it takes a little bit, but 100% you can get there. Then it makes all the difference. If you don't feel like they're losing out by not choosing you, that in real estate, when we have, an array of different service options, I think that you want to go back and kind of go back and reset a little bit. It's very important to have that mentality. So we are going to, I'm just looking at time because I'm going to have to take you guys through steps. So essentially what I'm going to do, I'm going to preface what I'm going to do after lunch. You guys in your workbooks, this is really important. You have, when we're going to go forward right after lunch, you're going to have these slides. These slides are different sections of the main presentation. You have a full page for notes for each section. It's really important if you want to get strong results that you take great notes right after lunch. Okay, it's really key. We're going to start right at 12:45 because here's what I'm going to do to help you guys out. I'm going to take you through the main steps. So what you do before you start the presentation, what you do in step 1, step 2, all the way to step 6, and what you do at the end of the presentation. I'm going to give you the equivalent of like a rubrics, right, at school of how you win every single step, how you get an A+ in every single section. So at the end of the day, you're going to be one of those agents who has 90-95% people choosing to hire you. Even when you're new, and you're so-so with the presentation, you should be getting 80% or more. That's very, very typical for us, okay? So I'm going to give you that because when you start to practice the presentation, and you hopefully, Ron will talk to you if he's your coach, but platforms about taping yourself, so you can go back and see how well you're actually presenting it. I want you to go back to this rubrics, to go back to these notes. They're going to be invaluable for you, because they're all the little things that are going to take your presentation from that like 8 to a 9 or a 6 to an 8. They're going to make a massive difference for you. So we're going to go through, and they're basically the non-negotiables. Like they're the things you want to make sure you're doing at every step in the process. So if you didn't print your workbook, at least make sure you've got, like 10 minimum, 10 pieces of paper, because you're not going to want to miss out on this. It's not on the slides. I take you through it because I want you listening and writing. Because when you're writing, your brain's actually taking in far more information. So there are times where you're at events and people say, put your pennies down, don't write. I just want you to hear me. Because they're trying to create an emotional state, right? A state of mind. There are other times where we're teaching, we're like, no, I want you to write because I want you to be retaining and processing this, and because you're going to need it after, okay? So in the afternoon, we're going to do those sections to build a bridge. We're also going to be going through the PowerPoint. So if you have not printed your workbook, you're really going to want to have another tab open with the PowerPoint presentation we sent in PowerPoint, because you're going to want to write a key point, which is creating your script under each slide. Okay, so if you printed the workbook, you can write it there and you can add it in the PowerPoint after, or you could just practice as you learn it. But if you did not print the workbook, you won't have that. So try to make sure you have another tablet or you have another laptop or you have a tab open with the PowerPoint right there, because you're going to want to note things that you're going to emphasize on each one of the different slides of the presentation. That's going to be important for you guys to do. So just checking, can everybody just confirm they have the PowerPoint presentation, please, that you have it and you have it open, accessible? Thumbs up. Where have all of our videos gone? Oh, there's a few more. Lee, Norm, Roger, I can hear you. See you guys. Bill, does everybody have the Oh, I see a thumbs up. Thank you, Lee. I saw it now. I forgot you have a thumbs up icon on PowerPoint. Thank you. Okay, printed copy will still work. Yeah, you're good. It's just if you didn't print it, or if you're really like tech savvy, you just want to put it right in there, then that is great. So we are 4 minutes from lunch, and I'm just going to open up for questions. And if there are none, we're going to break right until 12:45. At 12:40, I'll start the music. So if you've got an audio here, you'll know I have 5 minutes left. Any questions for me so far? This is a good time if you have them. Do we need a stretch break? Our brains are asleep. No? We're good? Questions? Insight? Nope. All right. Then take the extra couple minutes. I will see everybody right at 12:45. Have a great lunch. We'll see you soon.